as a Final Cut Pro user, using this computer, it's hands down the best Mac that I've ever used.
I mean, I'm an Adobe Premiere Pro editor, and I've been using Adobe Premiere Pro for like 15 years. And when it comes to the M1 chip, the truth is,
you gotta just press record.
Hey, what's up? It's Omar and Nolan with Think Media, helping you build your influence on YouTube. And oftentimes we talk about YouTube strategy tips as well as the best tools to help you succeed on YouTube. Like this video, I think it's so important to know the best and affordable options when it comes to what machine, computer, or laptop you use to edit your videos. And we're so pumped to be having this candid conversation. And that's essentially what this is about the Mac M1 computers. We've been using it for about 6 months now, and we've really put them to the test. And we want to talk about our initial experiences, maybe some pros and some cons, as him being a Final Cut Pro user, which is an Apple-made editing software, and myself being
which is also a better editing software.
Okay. Industry standard is kind of like Adobe Premiere Pro, but hey, we don't have to go there. But anyway, me being an Adobe Premiere editor and using the Mac M1 computer, and if you didn't know, and maybe Nolan just chime in real quick, Apple has released a brand new computer system with a chip that they have made themselves that they used to buy from Intel, actually.
Yeah, so now they're making their own chips. It's the chips that they've been using in their iPhones, and that's how their iPhones have been able to run so incredibly fast. Now they are better and they're inside their computers. So it's really, really exciting. And they're even coming out with the M1X, and there's going to be other names for it. So in the years that come, this video is still going to be relevant, because what's happened is we went from these like Intel based laptops and iMacs, and then we went boom, way up here to this like whole new level of performance. And so it's really, really exciting, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, when it comes to price, Apple has, because they're now their own supplier, they've extended that discount to their consumers. And so I used to, the MacBooks I had to buy in the past and used were around $3,300 for a laptop, but I was looking for something that can handle the amount of video editing, the photo editing, and all the content creation that I would do, as well as the day-to-day tasks. And that was just kind of the standard. It was like, if you really need the best of the best, it's going to cost you over $3,000. And that's a lot to ask for somebody who wants to get into editing video or what have you. But because of them creating their own chips, now it's literally, the price has been cut by a third to get very similar performance. And so kind of want to talk through our first impressions and get into this conversation. And so let's jump into the first impressions of the Mac M1.
Well, first of all, this is by far the best Mac that I've ever used. Ever. It's like incredible because it is so affordable. And I know the Mac Mini is actually just as powerful as the one I'm using. So I know you and I kind of have same performance when it goes there. Of course, we have the different editing programs. So with Final Cut Pro, that's what I've been using to edit all my YouTube videos. And I use this thing every day of the week inside of Final Cut Pro. I'm always editing something in there, and it's flawless. And especially if you're shooting on just like a basic camera that is like the M50, a ZV-1, any of these cameras that have 8-bit color, you might not know what that means, but if you have like an A6600, A6400, something like that, then you are going to be able to edit on this thing like no problem. It's going to be completely fine. Now, where some people run into issues, even on really expensive iMacs, the older iMacs, the older MacBook Pros, those that have the Intel-based processor, they don't have the Apple chip inside of it. They would run into issues with heavier codecs, something like a 10-bit color. Now, at Think Media, we got the Sony a7S III, which has 10-bit, has some very hefty files on there that take a lot of work from a computer. And so I've been testing it because I wanted to put my computer to the test. And what I found is that it runs flawlessly when I am doing a basic edit. Now, there are a few times where things start to slow down and I actually have to wait for it to render out. For example, if I have a 10-bit color, I'm shooting everything in 10-bit and I start editing, everything's fine. I don't even need to use proxies most of the time, which is really, really impressive. Like, I don't have to even mess with that. I just throw it in, I edit it, I have a rough cut, all good to go. When I start throwing on B-roll, color grading, text, and certain transitions, that's when I start to slow down a bit. I'll drop frames, but that's normal. And you got to realize, like, the fact that I'm able to get that far before any drop frames, I'm not even waiting for it to render. I literally throw it in right away. I make my cuts and I'm good to go. And for me, that's been super impressive. If I do have a project where I just want to be super speedy and not mess with any drop frames or anything, I either wait for it to render out and keep editing, or what I'll do is I'll use proxies. And when I'm using proxies, this thing, again, just of course runs flawlessly. It's the best Mac I've ever used. It's so fast. My exports are fast. I've just noticed everything has improved from my previous iMac. So I was using, a big desktop iMac, and it was a great computer, but this thing just like blows it out of the water. It handles anything I throw at it.
Well, hey, we just wanted to pause this conversation real quick and shout out our sponsor for this video, and that is Epidemic Sound. Epidemic is how we get all our sounds, our music, our vibes for our videos. And Nolan, you've been one to really bake in some awesome sound effects as well as background music in your videos.
Well, that's one of the things that I love about Epidemic. And even without it being a sponsor, I've used a lot of different like websites where you can get free music. Epidemic legitimately has really good music for videos. Like if you want to make epic YouTube videos, Epidemic Sound definitely is the way to go. And I just love how their website is really easy to use. You can find the song that you're looking for really easily. And then one of my favorite features is you can actually click on similar songs. So when I find something, but it's not quite what I'm going for, maybe it's the wrong tempo, I click on similar songs, and then you find a bunch more that sound just like it. So it's really easy to use, saves me a lot of time when I'm actually looking for music for my videos. But I know the sound effects are dope too. I mean, I know you've used some of the sound effects in your own videos, right?
Yeah, the sound effects are just so easy to find by simply searching it and finding that perfect sound, and they usually have a ton of options so you can actually get the right sound. And beyond the reason to actually have an easy access to music and sounds, it's really important that you don't put in so much hard work into a video, upload it to the internet, and then it gets dinged for copyright, even outside of YouTube as well. If you upload it anywhere, you can get copyright strike. And so Epidemic is the perfect solution to make sure you can freely find the perfect song for you. And so if you want to give Epidemic Sound a shot with a 30-day free trial, and whatever you do in those 30 days is protected, make sure to check out the link down in the description below, or just go to thinkmediasounds.com to check out that free trial. I had to learn how to use the Mac Mini as an Adobe Premiere user because, the Mac M1 came out and Adobe is an Intel-based software. And so what Adobe did essentially was, number one, they put out a beta version of Adobe Premiere Pro. And so I then downloaded it, and between the two, the regular version of Premiere and the beta version definitely ran the Sony A7S III footage really pretty smoothly. I was actually really impressed when I was just generally editing it. However, I have so many things in my Premiere Pro that's just built out, like presets and transitions, and none of that stuff transitioned over into the beta version of Premiere. And so I was just stuck in so many different predicaments, and I just wanted to force myself and make sure that I'm giving this a valiant effort. And so I would say right up front, the Mac Mini had some struggles in that arena as an Adobe Premiere Pro editor. And another issue that I think was the Bluetooth connectivity stuff with the Apple trackpad. I'm like, bro, the Apple trackpad should just connect easily to it, and it would jitter. And when you're doing hundreds of moves, making edits as you speed up, those little things add up over time. And I honestly got frustrated with the Mac Mini at first. So that was my first impressions was man, this thing freaking sucks for an Adobe Premiere Pro user. And all that to say, I'm a huge fan of just figuring things out, finding the fastest way to do something without compromising quality. And so I really wanted to figure through some of these things, and through some kinks and stuff. The things I worked through was, number one, getting a Logitech mouse, which I've actually learned to love, and it has all the buttons that you can use to access quick menus and things like that. But when it came to Adobe and using the Sony A7 III, I definitely had to turn on proxies in the camera. And so, like you mentioned, and if you don't know what proxies are, simply it's if you have a really high resolution video file that's a big file, you can actually tell your editing software, whether you're using Final Cut or Adobe Premiere, to communicate with the lower quality file. That would then be the proxy file. And what's cool about Sony cameras, even if you have an older Sony camera and you have an older computer, you can actually edit faster if you just turn on proxy recording inside of your menu. But all that to say, I started implementing that system or creating proxies through Adobe, and I was actually able to stick with Adobe Premiere, the regular version for the most part, because of the proxy workflow. And then as far as rendering videos, this is where I actually was blown away. I was blown away at the fact that my $3,300 MacBook Pro from a year or 2 years ago literally renders the same time with the Adobe Premiere Pro software. So I was just like, okay, this is a computer that's under $1,000, and the performance on a workhorse standpoint is incredible. And mind you, take into consideration that we're talking about like very heavy files with $3,000 cameras, and most people have cameras that have easier files to be edited. And so I think if you legit, like what Nolan said, even if you are an Adobe Premiere user or you want to get into Adobe because you like Photoshop or After Effects and things like that, it can handle it, and Adobe's doing what they can to kind of catch up. But there's definitely something to say about having a native video editing software that Apple makes, and so the way it communicates is much better if you are a Final Cut user. But nonetheless, it sounds like the MacBook Pro might be the better value just right up front because of those little kinks and quirks that the Mac Mini may still have to work through. Again, updating the things I've updated, it's now seamless. I do live streams and I'm confident to do them, and nothing has rose up once I really just swapped out this mouse.
I will say that there has been a few times, very rarely, that my fan has actually kicked on my computer. So the MacBook Pro does have a fan. The MacBook Air doesn't have a fan, but it has that M1 chip, and it's almost as fast as this MacBook Pro. But there's been a few times where I've just had a lot of programs open. I was exporting a video, stuff was rendering, and the fan kicked on. Now that's fine, that's normal, but I don't know, it's just one of my first impressions that that happened.
And what's funny is, as you speak of the fan, something I forget to bring up was my $3,300 MacBook Pro. Literally, it sounds like a jet is taking off when you're just editing basic video. And like, I was so surprised that same. I'll have all my Adobe programs open. I'm about to hit live on, StreamYard, and then it's silent. Like it's such a thing that you don't really recognize unless you've had that experience prior to, which is so nice for audio. I think when you're just in a room in a small office, like me and you have fairly small offices, that that fan noise isn't something that's coming into creating content, generally speaking.
Well, dude, I remember shooting some videos for Think Media, and I was using my iMac, and I literally was just doing a screen recording, and the fan would and I'm like, it ruined the audio in the video. I couldn't screen record for more than 2 minutes before the fan kicked on. And I screen record on this computer for maybe close to an hour for one of my tutorial videos that I was doing, and no fan, nothing. I was literally editing inside of Final Cut Pro, screen recording the whole thing, and nothing happened. It was chill.
Oh yeah,
I
think it's definitely an underrated fix or even feature of these new M1 chips is that they're so powerful that they don't really need to access their fan unless you're running at 100% CPU or whatever. But now when it comes to the Mac Mini kind of versus the MacBook Pro user experience on a port standpoint, I think it is cool how many ports the Mac M1 Mini has that I have, because there's 2 USBs, 2 Thunderbolt 3s, there's an HDMI port, and obviously you can expand that, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But I actually appreciated how much ports there are for the Mac Mini, but I know Nolan had some concerns about your MacBook Pro.
Well, yeah, the MacBook Pro does have 2 ports. I'm assuming the 16-inch is going to have 4 ports. But honestly, for me, I've been using the CalDigit. I think it's called the TS3, but Omar actually made a video reviewing that. If you want to, you can click the link in the description and check out that video. But I love that thing, and that kind of lives at home on my desk. And so what I do is I plug one cable into my laptop, and then I have basically everything I need. I have a bunch of USB, bunch of USB-C. I have HDMI ports, even an SD card slot. I really have everything that I need. And so I love that that's here, and I just leave that here. I just traveled actually to Washington. I brought my MacBook Pro with me. I brought an external hard drive that just goes USB-C in, and that's all I really needed. I was charging and I had a hard drive in. And so I definitely get why people want 4 ports, but for me, it's really not the end of the world that it has 2, because when I'm working at home and I need a bunch of ports and I need monitors, I get the CalDigit plugged in and I'm set.
but just definitely something to note that they had in the previous MacBook Pros was that they had 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, which is nice if you like go somewhere and you need a specific site to be open to be able to plug in power, or per se. I don't know, it kind of gets nitpicking at that point, but a lot of people were kind of bummed that it only had 2 ports. Nonetheless, it could totally be expanded, and we are looking forward to see more of those ports open up in the bigger models for sure.
You know, I know a lot of people here are looking to buy a laptop, whether it's just for like video content and if that's YouTube, or even higher production stuff, like any of these Apple chips in the iMac, the MacBook Pro, the Mac Mini, any of this stuff. It's like more than enough for what you're going to need for like 99% of the people out there. And so anytime someone asks me, they're like, hey, what laptop should I get for my YouTube channel? My new recommendation is like, just get any M1 Apple laptop, computer, whatever you need. You know, the laptops are nice, you can take it on the go, but if you want a really nice screen, get the new iMac, and it's just as fast, it's just as powerful, and you get a beautiful screen. And so it's kind of nice that we have options now. And so I love what they're doing with the Apple chips, and it's my #1 recommendation to anyone who asks me. So don't ask me anymore. Just this is my answer.
No, I do think it's cool that like Apple's gone to a more general market. I think the world is moving toward people being able to do video conference calls, or people needing to edit quick videos, even if you're not essentially a video editor, but that the playing field has been leveled with all the M1 offers out there on the market. And so like, I think it is determining how and which are you going to use this computer or laptop. Like Nolan mentioned, are you going to be mobile? I work at home and I crush video edits at home. And I've even built out the Mac Mini into this like incredible live stream dual camera setup that I used to do live streams and a lot of my other stuff. And it handles everything. And I know we were essentially just talking about just editing in general with Final Cut and Premiere. But yeah, those day-to-day tasks, you know, that it will murder those day-to-day tasks. They're so fast, being able to multitask and do things all at the same time and not experience any bog downs or anything like that. It's pretty incredible. And, you know, this is just the beginning. You know, I mean, they have put out a second wave of M1 computers and iPads and things like that. But this is something to look forward to and be excited about because of the price of entry to really become a content creator or someone who does maybe video production on the side or as a full-time hustle, that like you can get started with a very small initial investment by getting any of these machines and crush whatever you need to do. And so me and Nolan just wanted to capture this candid conversation because him being a Final Cut user and using the M1 chip, and me being a Premiere Pro user and also Mac users for quite some time, and then giving 6 months of like true putting to the tests, we just wanted to share our thoughts. And yes, without a doubt, we would encourage to jump in and get one of these computers to start creating content. Because if you bought a brand new iPhone or even an iPhone that's a year old, you're gonna spend the same amount of money for an actual computer that they offer. And so there's just so much that you can do with this, and I love this. I love that more people are gonna be able to start to edit video. It's becoming a skill that is normalized across the world, just knowing how to edit basic video. And so these computers will do it. And if you wanna check out tutorials on either Final Cut or Premiere Pro, you can click or tap the screen, and we can't wait to see you in a future video. Peace.